Harihi Om Sadashivasamarambham Śaṅkarācārya Madhyamam Asmadācārya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Mūkam Karoti Vācālam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Krupatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Om Sishyatma Samarpan Karpanya Dosho Upahata Swabhavaha Prichhami Tvam Dharma Sammuda Cheta Yashreyasyan Nishchitam Bruhi Tanme Shishyasteham Shadhimam Tvam Prapannam. Oh, welcome to the class. Last week's class, we stopped somewhere in the middle of the 71st shloka, and the shloka goes like this. Vihāya Kāmān sarvān pumānscharati Niḥspruhaḥ nirmamo nirahankaraḥ sa Śāntimadhigacchati. So in this, we were looking at the nirahankaraḥ, ahankar being without the ahankar, and nirmamaḥ. In this, we completed the nirahankaraḥ, but we just wanted to touch back again on this point before we proceed towards the bhashyam. Nirahankaraḥ. The ahankar is a very, very critical piece in our life. The propriety of I, that is what the nirahankaraḥ defines. One without having that is the meaning of nirahankaraḥ. So typically, with everything, what you associate is the I. I am the doer. I am the enjoyer. I am this entity. I am this identity, etc. This value indicates that a Sthitapragya is one who has successfully removed that doership, that ownership, and error in identity. Identity is a very important aspect. You cannot be without an identity. And we checked on the Shloka number 29 of the 7th chapter. When we go into the 8th chapter, the explanation will come. But the shlokas, we saw that a jnani will have a knowledge of what is his swabhav, what is his true nature. When we talk about that, the ahankar becomes inevitable. If in case I have to understand the nature of myself, I cannot do that if I am having sarvatma bhavaha. Because when you look at sarvatma bhavaha, all properties, all qualities are part of me. There can be no quality in which I am not there. If that is the case, then the swabhav will not be identified. So what does the nirahankaraḥ represents? Nirahankaraḥ represents that the I remains associated with the prakritik amsam alone, with only the sharir, not with the atma. That difference will come. And when you look at it from a sharirik point of view, you will know that that sharir has a swabhav. And knowing that Swabhav is an important value that we will see in chapter number 7. But at an Atma level, at the Chaitanyam level, one who does not differentiate and makes it as everything. That is the meaning of the term Nirahankaraha. An alternate version is one who has successfully moved his identity from Anatma to Atma. There are Vedantic schools which have expressed this to be the meaning of Nirahankaraha, which is moving your identity from I always represent this body to the Atma, the soul. The soul is the Sarvatma Bhavam. And that I becoming that Sarvatma Bhava, Atma Swarupam, is what they call it as the Nirahankaraha. They are valid, but it is having its own limitations. And similarly, my expression here, which we follow in this school, is also having its own limitations. It is for you to analyze that limitation and overcome what is being told, the true swarup of it, how to see it. So, in our school of thought, we associate this I with both the Chaitanyam, which is the Paramatma Swarupam or Atma Swarupam, as well as the body, the Shariram, which is the Prakritikam. And in the Prakritikam, I have limited myself to the qualities of this Sharir. Whereas in the Paramatma Swarupam, I have removed that difference and become one with the Chaitanya Amsam and Sad Amsam. Why is this very important? The problem is when you associate your I with your body. And remember, when we talk of the body, the Sharira Trayam will come into picture, which is Sthulam, Sukshmam, and Karanam. There are 3 Sharir that we talk about. Sthula Sharir is the body, the physical body. Sukshma Sharir is the subtle body. We know that it exists, but we cannot define it with a specific boundary like how the physical body can be identified with. For example, your mind, your feeling, your pranan, all of these are part of the Sukshma Sharir. You know it exists, but at the same time, you cannot define, you cannot create a boundary, you cannot point that this is what it is. And that becomes the Sukshma Sharira. A Karana Sharira is the basis, is the beginning of it. Like the best example is a seed for a tree. And this also we have discussed when we were looking at the earlier Atma-based definitions in the 2nd chapter. Identity of I, when you put it with the body, what happens is there is a conflict that takes place. One, the I, which is a combination of Atma, Anatma Swarupam, and having the characteristic of the Atma Swarup, which Avyayam, which cannot deplete, which cannot change, which is eternal in nature. When that comes in contact with the Prakritikam, which is ever changing, this I tries to undergo a change which it cannot. And when this conflict arises, your samsara is born. From a karmic point of view, as soon as I create the difference, I become the doer. And because I become the doer, I become the cause of an output. And that cause of an output drives me for the next one in terms of taking me into a cyclic path. That is what is considered as the downside of having the ahankar in the wrong, with the wrong understanding. Nirahankaraha represents that the ahankar has been completely dissolved and it has been taken into the right perspective and remains in the same state at all times. Because the I is going to be again in the same state at all times. It doesn't undergo any change, and you also become changeless with it. And that is the key thing to the Sthitapragya, the Sthitham. That Sthitham can only come when you are letting go of the ahankar, in which you associate the I with the ever-changing, ever-depleting body. This is the topic that we had touched in our previous class. Acharya explains the ideal form of sannyas. He who has completely renounced all desires, Kāmān Vihāya. He wanders freely. His life is sustained by the bare minimum activity, only what is needed for biological existence, such as eating, walking, breathing. He doesn't act from desire, purpose, or possession, but lives in a state of absolute freedom. So this aspect supports the idea that moksha is not achieved by external action. Rather, it is by complete inner renunciation and self-abidance. This is the core of what Shankaracharya has tried to give as an explanation for this shloka. He further says, there are two qualities of the wise, which is Niḥspruhaḥ. He has no desire even for bodily existence, let alone for wealth, pleasure, or status. Life itself is not clung to. He is fully detached. That nirmamaha comes into picture here. Even the bare necessities such as food, shelter are not seen as mine by the Sthitapragya. That which binds us, keeps us in this bondage. There is no egoic attachment or possessiveness. These qualities define the internal renunciation that leads to peace, which is Śānti and moksha, not just external asceticism. It is not like I become a saint. That's about it. No, it is internally letting go of the things. That is the context that Shankaracharya puts an emphasis on. Acharya also explains the culmination of the spiritual realization. The Sthitapragya, having renounced desires and ego, is also nirahankaraha. Even his self-concept as learned, wise, virtuous is dissolved. He has no inner pride, even about spiritual accomplishments. Such a one knows the Brahman. He uses the term Brahmavid. He is the one who attains the supreme peace, which is the Śānti, which is also called as Nirvana. the final liberation. He becomes Brahman itself, right? Brahma Bhutah. This echoes the Upanishadic truth, Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of the Brahman becomes the Brahman, is the way that Acharya has expressed. Then he introduces the 72nd shloka here, saying, Sa Esha Jnana-nishtha stuyate. This very Jnana-nishtha, the unwavering establishment in self-knowledge, marked by freedom from desire, ego, and possession, is what is being praised here by Bhagavan. So, in the 72nd shloka, this chapter concludes. And how he concludes it is by introducing this moksha as a characteristic or as an aspect, or that liberated form, one getting transformed into that, is what we will be talking about in the 72nd shloka. This inner commitment to self-realization is what Acharya calls Jnana-nishtha, and Bhagavan glorifies it as the highest path to peace and moksha. But before we proceed to the 72nd shloka, let us take a look at some of the questions that we had left open for today. We will start with Prabhakar's question. The question from Prabhakar was, having gone in a specific field, is it my kshetra paripalana that I carry certain desires as a duty to fulfill, to do justice to the kshetra that I have undertaken, that I have taken? Kshetram is not definitive and a field that has, that has a border and contained into with something. That was my explanation. Sorry. I had just started trying to take notes on what the explanation can be, but I stopped it somehow. Okay. So that was your basic question. Having gone in a specific field, is it my kshetra paripalana that I carry certain desires as a duty to fulfill, to do justice to the kshetra that I have taken? The first thing that we need to understand is the term kshetra paripalana. So, as you can see, there are two terms in it. One is called as kshetram. Unless we understand the term kshetram, then we will not be able to understand what is paripalana and how it fits into this whole concept. A kshetra is a field as defined or as identified by you in terms of your association. This sharir, this body, is prakritik amsam, that we all know, that this body is made of the same elements that this earth is made of. It is with the food that we ate that this body has come into this shape. And it is living its own path, and it is going through the 6 kind of changes and towards the last one, pranashyati. This cycle is what this body goes through. And together with it are my mind, my thoughts, my, energy, my efficiencies, all these, subtle and the physical aspects of it eventually get into the end. It has a beginning and it has an end. Then you look at this body cannot be independent. It is part of the entire Prakriti from one point of view, and in the other, it is associated with components around it. So it becomes important that that particular area of this body needs to be protected by it, or needs to be nurtured by it, not protected. Because kshetra rakshanam is considered to be part of the samsara, the bondage, the issue that we are facing as individuals, the ups and downs that we face as individuals. So that Kshetra Rakshanam should not be there, but the Paripalanam should be there. In other words, who defines what is a Kshetra? For the purpose of identifying, we can call many things. For example, a language such as Sanskrit is a Kshetra, Tamil is a Kshetra, Tamil Nadu is a Kshetra. We can identify anything as a Kshetra. Anything that you can define with a boundary to be a Kshetra. But is this boundary real, or is it a convenience that you have put a pin on? If you analyze it, you will realize that it is only a convenience. When you say Tamil Nadu, you may have something in your mind, and that could be very different to what I see as Tamil Nadu. It can be a boundary as it is being drawn around the, in the map of India. That is what is Tamil Nadu for you. Right? But there could be anywhere we have established ourselves. That is all Tamil Nadu. It could be another way of looking at it. The Kshetra is not defined at all. Let us say my family. As soon as I define that, there is a boundary that I draw. And that association to that boundary comes into you. Unfortunately, this boundary in you also changes. What you mean as the Kshetra, as in the Tamil Nadu, but could totally change when you are like 5 years from now. For you, Tamil Nadu could become that in which the people who speak Tamil have people who, the collection of the people who speak Tamil is Tamil Nadu. Or it could change into something more. The Tamil Nadu is going to be only the part of the Dravida. That is what you have identified yourself with, and the others is not. Right? That change may happen. You will yourself change the scope of the Kshetra that you have defined. That Kshetra is fluid in nature. That is what my point is to say. However, when you create that Kshetra, what you also establish is a relationship between what you have defined as a Kshetra and the external aspects to that Kshetra. It could be the enemy, it could be the friend, it could be a network, it could be something which is contained. So it can be in any form. The way that I try to explain it is like, take a big circle, and that is what is a Prakriti. And inside that you draw several circles continuously. And you will see that there are small circles. Inside that small circle also there could be some circle. There are some circles which will be intersecting. There could be some circles which are totally disjointed. That becomes your relationship to the Prakriti. The Prakriti which is the collection of all, inseparable collection of all, has been artificially separated for the convenience of the bodily functions. And as soon as you create that separation, you create a relationship with other kshetras also. This paripalana is nurturing this circle that you have created by maintaining the relationship between all the connected components, as well as holding on to the contained components of that kshetra. In a simple word, in other words, you live in India, so you are an Indian, which means you have the same value, all of it, all the states and the union territories are part of your India. You should be able to have that value. There is nothing like Tamil versus Telugu versus Kannada, etc. There is no difference that takes place. For you, it becomes a contained element. And if you are going to speak as Tamil, then the districts within that are going to be contained. But then the other states, it is going to have relationship. Nurturing is something that you do in order to enable the sustenance and the growth of the circle that you have identified. Okay, so nurturing is just an enablement. The example that we give for the nurturing or the paripalana is how you take care of a small baby. In other words, the expectation from the baby is not in you, but it is your love towards that baby which continues your contribution for that baby to evolve, grow, and become. That attitude towards that service that you offer to that kshetra is what is the meaning of the paripalana. So the role of the individual becomes the kshetra paripalana, in which you define the kshetra and your attitude towards that kshetra is not for you to gain something out of it, but it is to nurture and enable a good growth of that kshetra, good establishment of that kshetra, good evolution of that kshetra. Now, if you look at it from the kshetra paripalana point of view, having gone in a specific field, is it my kshetra paripalana? No. The kshetra paripalana is not, is it my kshetra paripalana? Kshetra paripalana is the attitude that you develop towards the field to which you have gone. Perhaps that is what you meant when you asked the question. But I thought the clarification was very, very important. The place where it fails is that I carry certain desires as a duty to fulfill. It is not a desire there. We will have to reframe it. You can look at it from the point of view of desire, but what we set is an objective. There is a clear difference between desire and an objective. One can say that to achieve that objective is my desire, and that is a place where it starts overlapping. But we need to have a clarity that it is not the desire, rather, it is having it as an objective and working towards that. The difference between a human and a non-human is this ability, this intellectual capability that we carry. And because of that intellectual capability, it is easy or it is possible for us to have an objective and develop our skills, contributions towards a specific objective. The desire will kick in when that reaching the objective becomes more important than having the objective and moving towards it. The difference is when I have an objective and I move towards it, I am very clear there could be thousands of hurdles that come on my way, and I know that is my objective. I'm not desiring to reach my objective. Rather, I am trying to create the path to reach my objective. That is the difference between the desire and the objective. Having the desire to reach the objective is bad. Having an objective is good. Having an objective and then finding your path towards that objective becomes the part of your commitment, and that is kshetra paripalana. Without the objective, we as human will fail to perform. Even for animals, right? When it is hungry and it has to go, it has to have an objective and then it has to work towards it. It will encounter a lot of problems between the time that it targets a food and it consumes it. And it keeps its focus and goes towards it. Similarly, because we are human, having the intellectual capability, setting that objective and going towards that, we do it in different scale, in different context. When you say that I carry certain desires as a duty to fulfill, no, the desire to fulfill the duties is not correct at all. Duties are to be fulfilled and in the righteous way. Performing that aspect of, fulfilling the duties is one. When you are fulfilling the duty, you are a contributor into the kshetra that you have defined. It is only when you set an objective and then drive towards it, you become the true human. As a human being, it is possible for us to set the objectives and go towards it. Shrikant Bhaiya had spoken about, having the objective of becoming a president. We will talk about it. There again, it is not an objective. You are misrepresenting the word objective here. Here, you are desiring for a position, not really knowing what is it that you want to do in terms of developing it. This is the place where I want to be. Whereas a desire is, this is what I want to be. When I say that I set an objective to be a president, you become I want to be. When you say that I want to grow my company as an executive, I want to grow my company to this. As a software architect, I want to establish a software which is operationally very stable and sustainable in an economic way, which is futuristic in nature, which can go across platforms. When I think of these things, this is an objective. This is not achieving something. This is not a place to rest. This is my goal, and this is what is going to be driving me. And in that, I can have some numbers. I can say that, hey, I want to have a sales target of X. I want to create a platform for, IoTs, right? So like this, I can have specific, milestones, but my objective is very clear as a software architect, as an executive of the company. That difference between desire and objective needs to be understood. And you don't do justice to the kshetra that you have taken by saying that I have to do justice to the kshetra that I have taken. There are various things that you have done. One is, I have taken a kshetra. That is not a kshetra at all, a part of that kshetra. Committing yourself inseparably with that kshetra is the first quality that we are talking about. Then, to do justice becomes obligatory in nature. That falls within the structure of my duty. Whenever you are working in a prakritikam, you will always find two aspects. One is that which you have to sustain, that which you have to maintain, and the other one is that which you have to achieve. That achievement aspect is the objective, and the sustenance aspect is the duty. When I have taken up this as my kshetra, or where I have associated myself, where I have committed myself, where I have put myself into that kshetra, become one with that, both of them will come to life. One is the duty that I must perform to sustain the kshetra, and the other is the objective, because a kshetra is always very fluid, uncertain, and ever-changing. If you leave it as is, it will only go downhill. It has to be sustained, and then it has to be grown. Both are essential. The commitment to a kshetra should come with both the objective as well as the sustenance. So when you say to do justice to the kshetra as duty to be fulfilled, it is not justice to the kshetra, it is again a contribution to the kshetra with the realization that as part of the kshetra, I have these two things to be carried out in parallel. There is no this is better versus this is better. Both are essential. A person who is working at the lowest of the order in an organization is as important and equally valuable as the CEO of the organization. They all together form the organization. It is not by separating it. I know that in today's world it seems to be a little odd, because of the kind of layoffs and other things that I'm seeing, where the company has become a separate entity to the resource that is making the company. So long as the resource is needed, the company will say that you are part of the company. And one fine day, it can just chop you off. Those were not the values like about 20 years ago. Could there have been issues where we had to let go of people? Yes, but it was a painful effort. Today, it is part of the culture of the corporates. That has changed. When you look at it from today's point of view, what I said as a value still holds, except that the authority around the companies, the entities, have taken a position where they look at the subject as governed and them as the one who governs. That relationship has kind of changed. And there are subtleties. But my intent is not to talk about the world politics or how it functions today. My intent here is to clarify on the question that you have raised, and I hope I did that with some justice. Prabhakar, did I answer your question?
Very much, Guruji. Love the way you put it.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't, this is what I had in my mind when you first asked the question, but unfortunately, last week it was a little busy period. I had guests at home, right? The other questions were from Shrikant Bhaiya. He was referring to, is desiring to be a Sthitapragya being a Kama-kami? And I did touch upon the answer, and the answer that I gave was, see, yes, wanting to be a Sthitapragya is a desire. But we do not put the term desire to it. We use two distinctly separate terms for it. One is called as mumukshu, and another is called as one who desires, kama-kami or kami. One who desires is kami, having the kamam to achieve something, and one who wants to be established in what he has acquired so far, he becomes a mumukshu. The difference is very subtle. In terms of mumukshu, why it is associated with Atmajnan is because you know that you exist. Can you give me a praman that you exist? Oh yeah, I'm here. Well, you spoke. Does it mean you exist? There is a voice that is there, which has existed, which has come into existence. I can hear it, but is that you? Say, if you don't speak at all, does it mean you don't exist? No, you still exist. Okay, you wave your hand. If in case I chop off your hand, do you still exist? Yes, you do still exist. That I, which we call, cannot be pointed to, but it is ever known. One that you have already known, but you are not able to hold on to that which you know. Putting an effort towards becoming or being able to hold on to is what a mumukshu represents. Atma Jnana is not somebody teaching you what is I. Atma Jnana is somebody guiding you to help you establish yourself in yourself. And hence, the term mumukshu is more often used from that point of view. The same thing is applicable to Sthitapragya also. If the prajna refers to the Atma Jnana, becoming sthitham in that jnana of Atma is Sthitapragya. But if you are going to talk in terms of mathematics, becoming pratishthit in that jnana is what the Sthitapragya in that context will represent. When you strive, so here the difference is not trying to achieve something. Rather, it is what I have already known, becoming firm in that, becoming unwavering in that knowledge. Best examples that we have said is where, I'm sitting at home saying that if in case my daughter is going to come late today again, I'm not going to shout at her. I'm not going to shout at her. I make this particular firm decision in me, saying that if when she comes in late, I will not shout at her. As soon as she enters the house, I start shouting at her. I had a jnana that they are very old. They are much, much, more capable. They know what they are trying to do. In fact, they are supporting me in my living itself. And I should not be shouting at them. I have no right to shout at them. All this knowledge has gone into my mind. But when the position comes to, or when the time comes for me to act upon it, what I do, I slip and I act beyond the knowledge that I have acquired. A sthita prajna is where the jnana that I have achieved, I am sthitam in that. It is not going to be like I will act the other way around. It becomes a second nature. The second example that we have spoken about is like driving a car. The first time I picked up the car, it was like sitting on the edge of the seat, looking through, trying to see what is in front of the car because I cannot see it, and then trying to drive very, very carefully. That is what I was doing, becoming so aware of what I'm doing. But nowadays, I sit in the car, I just go. I don't even have to have a second thought of what I'm doing. It becomes a second nature. That is called as sthita prajna. So when you desire to be sthita prajna, we do not call it as a desire because you're not trying to acquire something. Rather, you are trying to firm up on what you have acquired to become a part of you, the swarupam. So when it becomes a swarup in you, that is when we call it as a sthita prajna. It is not yearning to achieve a position or a state. It is trying to digest that which you have already consumed. We talk about our learning in different ways. When you look at the learning, when you were born, you hardly knew how to even suck milk for existence. You had to be induced. You did not know how to walk. You fell down so many times before you are able to successfully even stand. There was a change. You did not know how to pick your own clothes. And now you are providing the styles for the world. There is an evolution, there is a change that continues to happen. When you do this, you will have known that you have gained some knowledge, right, which is not the supreme vidya of Atma, Atma Jnana, rather it is a worldly knowledge. But anywhere you see, you have gained some knowledge. When you gain that knowledge, you are not sthitam in it. You are not fixed in the knowledge that you have gained. You waver. And slowly you come to the point where you have gained and established yourself in the knowledge that you have acquired. So this is a normal course of the journey. This aspect of it, becoming sthitam in the jnana, is what is called as Sthitapragya. Having the desire to establish yourself in the jnana, in the knowledge that you have already acquired, is called a mumukshu, not a kami. That is the difference between the two. For the question that Shrikant Bhaiya had asked, is desiring to be a Sthitapragya being a Kāmakāmi? I would say, if you see it as a desire, it is a good desire. Please do have. But in the Vedantic world, we use a different word for the desire because of the nature of the desire. And hence we call it as mumukshuhu, a very, very important aspect. A kami is one who has a desire to acquire something. When he gave the example of, say, I want to become the president, and then I work hard towards it and I become a president. Here it is not the sthitam in the prajna. Here there is a desire for achieving something, for getting something, and celebrating having got it as a victory. This is kami. This is a desire. When you have this desire, whether having such a desire is right or wrong is not what we are discussing here. When you have the desire to be able to, realize, to be in the clarity that this desire is going to give me the feelings of ups and downs. As in, there will be moments of celebrations, enjoyment, successes. We are totally exalted kind of a stuff. You are in the seventh world upon this, or you are in the hell, right? Or you are suffering. You are going through so much of pain. This cycle of pain and pleasure will always be there when you are a kami. Kāmakāmi is desiring towards as object. So here it becomes Kāmakāmi. When the desire is driving you, remember, you will have the cycle of goodness and badness, the suffering and enjoyment. This dualistic experience will always be there in you. In a sthita prajna, that goes away. When you attain the sthitam in the prajna, that goes away. And hence, such a desire is different to the desire of, say, wanting to be a president. This is the way that we need to realize, understand, and contemplate the value on sthita prajna. There was a third question that was asked, but I will hold it for the next week to continue. The third question was not directly from Shrikant Bhaiya, but it was very indicative in the statement that he said, which is the difference between the man and the woman. The feelings that Bhabi has versus what Bhaiya has. And this could be something that we can touch upon in our next class. But we will try to continue and conclude the 72nd Shloka and then take up with that question. Having said that, I will take a break here and over to Q&A. Prabhakar Bhaiya.
No questions, Guruji. Still thinking about chewing what has been taken in.
Got it. Yeah. Especially for your question, Are you feeling that your question was fully answered, or you still need to think through it? If that is the case, we will always keep it open. And if in case you have to ask the question again, or different points, or if you want to challenge it, yes, I think I would love it.
My query or question has completely resolved, 100% resolved.
Awesome.
It is duty. I mean, it is nothing more than a duty. If that is considered, everything is dissolved within that one word.
Okay, well, we will take a leave here today and we will connect again next week. Harihi Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnad Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.